I have to admit, sometimes I fall into the consumerism view of the world where something that's more expensive is obviously more better. I know, I absolutely know this is the wrong way to look at things, but when you get something like this, the Jackery Explorer 1000 that literally cost $1,000 after you buy something that was half price, supposedly the same amount of power, and blows up in your face, you just kind of get reassured that, more money equals more better. But in today's video, that is actually not the case, and I didn't believe it and had to keep retesting, and here I am, still saying, totally not the case. What's up YouTube, Jason here with Byte My Bits, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about a brand of a solar generator, which is really just a fancy battery with an inverter built in, that I've actually never heard of. This is called a pecron. Now the Jackery Explorer 1000, if you're at all into these portable batteries that have been floating around recently, the Jackery has kind of, stood out. You can call it marketing, you can call it quality, whatever. This is a badass battery. Let's just say it. It's awesome. You pay $1,000 for a 1,000-watt device that has 1,002 kilowatt hours worth of battery in them, but still, if you need power on the go, the Jackery 1000 is kind of sort of like the go-to right now in the market. We'll bring in the Pecron E1000. This is also a 1,000-watt device. It has a 1,028 kilowatt hour battery in it. Just a little bit more. I see what you did there, Pecron. But this battery is able to do just a few more things that the Jackery Explorer 1000 just can't handle. So let's talk about the basics. The Pecron E1000 actually uses a little bit more standard charging and discharging ports. It uses a 4-pin charger. It takes 29.4 volts, up to 29.4 volts in, that's 10 amp, and it can charge at 220 watts. Wow. To give an example, the Jackery Explorer 1000 can only draw about 160 to 164 watts. Now we're talking charging from the wall. Technically speaking, if you were to have enough solar panels, I have seen the Jackery Explorer charge capacity get boosted up just a little bit, but just from the wall, plugging it in with the supplied charger that they send you, this thing charges at 160 to 164. This one charges at 220 watts. This also produces pure sine wave electricity, which means that you can use sensitive equipment on it, like computers or possibly some backup medical devices, CPAPs, that sort of thing. On the front of the device, you do have two 5-volt, 2-amp out USB ports, which are great for running camp lights. I cannot stress this enough. If you want to run lights off this and you want to be out camping enough, like for a long time, just get yourself a pair or a set of USB lights. I have them, they're awesome. They draw very, very little power and they last forever. In fact, when I was doing my testing, I ran this thing dry on anything that actually needed power, and then I plugged in the USB lights and they still ran for almost an hour and a half. So they just use very little power. You could probably power those things for weeks. And I mean, it's way better than plugging anything in here that actually requires an AC inverter to run. On the back, kind of a unique setup, but I kind of understand it. You actually have 4 different outlets that you can use. These are 4 AC outlets, 2 of which are grounded. The other 2 are not. To me, that was kind of weird at first, but then I started to realize things that I plug in, like a fan, for example, that only has 2 plugs and does not have a ground, I was using those just as much as I was using the other ones with the ground. Now that is definitely different from here, where you get 3 fully grounded plugins from the Jackery Explorer 1000, but this one gives you 4, 2 of which are grounded. And if you are really going to use this with multiple devices, chances are you're going to use some sort of an extension cord that comes out with more outlets on it anyway. So if you want to do that, you have 2 of them, that's fine. And turning the AC inverter on and off, literally just that. The fan will come on if you kick it in, and you actually start using it. The fan will kick on in order to keep the batteries cool. So it can get a little loud if you're really pushing a lot of watts from it, but it's really not that bad. Now there were a couple things when I originally got this battery that kind of threw me off, primarily just because the Jackery Explorer, the expectations were kind of set with what I got with this one. But it doesn't have a light. I know that sounds stupid, but it doesn't have a built-in light. The Jackery actually has a light on the side that you can use to, say SOS, or you can just light something up. It's not very bright, but it still has a light. That is, weirdly enough, something that I actually used when I used the Jackery Explorer when I was camping. I had that light turned on because I had the battery down and it's like super dark where I was, and it was nice just having this very low wattage light telling me exactly where the unit was so I wouldn't run it over with a four-wheeler. Again, not a big deal, but it is nice to have a light built in. That way you don't have to plug something in. You combine that with an actual physical switch, a boxy design, very generic, and something that's really kind of hard to see, but little build quality things. Like this front is black, but it's just a sticker, and this came directly from the factory. It's just kind of peeling off. You push it back on, no big deal. It's cool, but the sticker was peeling off right from the factory. So I started thinking to myself, it's like, this feels more generic, less engineered, just more generic. Let's get a box, let's put a battery in it and give it a handle. So right off the bat, I had my doubts because the last one that I bought on a budget, I tried to plug in something that pushed it just a little bit, and I mean a little bit above its power range, and that thing fried. Like, it was just done. Surprisingly though, not the pecron. I have been putting this thing through some tests that I thought would help level out the playing field because I have had the Jackery Explorer 1000 for longer, obviously, than I have this one. This one was not capable of performing the same as this one in my test. So I have drained and recharged this thing over the last month. I would say. Probably, I want to say maybe 24 times, which in my mind brings it up to where the Jackery Explorer 1000 is in my house, where it's been drained and recharged roughly about a couple dozen times. But even after that, I was able to verify that this thing can outpace the Jackery Explorer 1000 and cost you $200 to $250 less than what the Jackery cost. With the Jackery, I feel like you're buying more name brand, you're buying more engineered, neatly packaged stuff. This, you're just getting a raw battery. Just screwing the R&D and making it look fancy and presentable, I guess, flashy, whatever. I actually kind of like the raw design versus this design. I actually kind of like the more standard ports for, charging and discharging this battery. So, this has the things that actually make it a little bit better than the Jackery, and you're not going to be paying that extra amount of money for the Jackery name. So what kind of test did I do? Well, like I said, this thing charges at 220 watts. This thing charges 160 watts. We're talking optimal from the wall, built in. They sent you this charger. This should give you the best, fastest charging capability that you could possibly ever do. From the wall, from absolute zero. Again, I had to drain this thing and then run it down with 5-watt, USB lights just to make sure it was dead. From the wall, this thing is able to charge in 4 hours and 55 minutes. That's 0 to 100. 100% charged. Whereas the old Jackery over here took 6 hours and I want to say roughly 20 minutes. I think it was actually closer to 6 hours and 25 minutes, but I set my camera up and it stopped recording, but it was at 99% for the better part of like 15 minutes. So I'm pretty sure it was about 20 to 25 minutes. 6 hours to 20 to 25 minutes. So if we're rounding up, literally, this thing charges an hour and a half slower. So that 220 watts versus the 160 watts really starts to shine, especially if you are in need of getting your battery charged faster. Now, I have solar panels, but my solar panels really only put out about 60 watts in optimal conditions. And it's not really optimal conditions. It's winter, the sun's not out very high, it's freaking cold, and mostly cloudy all the time. In the future, I do want to get my hands on a few more panels. That way I could, daisy chain them together, see if I can pump more, charging capacity into all of the devices that I try out. But yeah, it's always the same. It's about 60, 65 charging. That's about all I can get out of my solar panels. Discharging, however, is interesting because, like I said, this is 1,028 kilowatt hours. This is 1,002 kilowatt hours. I don't know, we got like one extra battery in there, maybe one little, I don't know. I wish I could take these things apart, but that scares the crap out of me because I don't want to break them. I actively use these things. 3D printing, for example, this one's really good for 3D printing because it charges so much faster. You can hook it up. It's like a, just like a UPS for like a 4-day print. So this thing is way more useful than something like this, especially for something that draws more power than what 160 watts can charge. But discharging, I used a space heater that has a fan built into it where on the low setting is going to draw around 650 watts. With the Jackery Explorer 1000, I was able to run that space heater for 1 hour and 17 minutes, which, I mean, let's be real, like if it's super cold and you really need some heat, even if it's on a low setting, as long as that's in a closed environment, an hour and 17 minutes is a lot of heat, especially when you're really freaking cold. However, the Pecron E1000 was able to run it for 1 hour and 27 minutes. Just had to add that 10 minutes. You know, that's that extra 2 kilowatt hours. Just slamming it right there. 1 hour and 27 minutes, 1 hour and 17 minutes, just okay, close enough, right? But it gets deeper. And this is what I had to consistently recheck and check again, because I honestly couldn't believe it. The Jackery Explorer 1000, if you pull, let's say 1300 watts, it will protect itself, shut itself down, because it's a 1000 watt that can peak up to about 1500 watts. Hey, Editing Jason here. Just to let you know, moving forward, the Jackery Explorer 1000 is actually rated at 2000 watt peak. I thought it was 1500. It's 2000 watts, which even makes my argument just a little bit better. But it's only for short bursts. Like, for example, let's say if you wanted to run a vacuum cleaner. I'm not saying you should or would or could, but well, I know you could. If you wanted to run a vacuum cleaner, that initial boot up could draw a peak amount of electricity, which is where the 1000 watt comes in with the peak of 1500, allows you to get a device started up, and then whenever it settles down, you're good to go. It's not meant for sustaining a draw above what it's rated. It just means that it can handle it briefly. Well, the Pecron E1000 can handle up to 1000 watts. However, its peak draw is 2000 watts. And the crazy thing is that same space heater that I tested it out to draw and drain both of these to see how long they would last, that thing pulls anywhere between 1250, sometimes up to 1300 watts, just to run the little space heater with a fan. I plugged that thing into the Jackery Explorer 1000 and it lasts almost exactly 30 seconds every time. I timed it, turned it on, timed it again. I even tried to cool the thing. It did not change anything. 30 seconds, Jackery turns off. Don't like it. The Pecron, on the other hand, I can run that space heater until it's dead. Seriously. It only lasts for about 25 minutes, somewhere around there, but it will run it till it's dead. It does not turn off. It does not shut off to protect itself. It will sustain 1200, 1280-ish watts until it is dead. That's where the clowning comes in on the Jackery Explorer 1000. It's just like, no, bro, go to sleep. I got this. And I was trying all kinds of weird stuff too. Like I ran the vacuum cleaner off of this, ran just fine. Went a little over 1000, no big deal. Vacuum cleaner started up like all vacuum cleaners do on batteries like this, like actual full vacuum cleaners. It's a little bit of a rough start and then it just kicks in that power. It's able to run all that without any kind of problem. However, I did want to overload this. I wanted to see what it would take to shut this thing off. And I found out what it is. It's roughly about 13 to 1400 watts. For a sustained draw of about 13 seconds. Pretty much what I did is I ran the space heater with the fan and everything built in off of this device, and then I charged the Jackery, which pulled about 160 watts, give or take. I was charging this and running the space heater, and after 13 seconds, very consistently 13 seconds, trying over and over and over again, it would shut off and protect itself. But again, we're looking at 1300 plus watts before it actually protected itself. I was able to peak over 1500 and 1600 watts for very short amounts of time for when I was initializing things, and it would not shut off, whereas this one would just be like, brr. So that is what makes the Pecron E1000 completely impressive compared to the 1000 watt $1,000 Jackery Explorer 1000. Another thing that I want to say is that the display here, I love the display. The Jackery Explorer, it has a good display. I don't have anything against this display. It gives you percentages. It tells you sort of like how much battery you have left, but not this, right? This thing will tell you what's coming in, what's going out exactly, just like this one will. But the percentages on this, it doesn't show because it's 100% charged right now, is a lot more precise. And even more specifically here, whenever you get down to the lower ranges, this one will linger on 1% for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, it seems like. whereas this one will actually give you a much more accurate, you're about to run out of battery reading on the display. It's just finely tuned. It'll tell you exactly how long it takes to charge, pretty close anyway. It'll give you the wattage in and wattage out, and if you are charging it, I don't know if I like this or not, but if you are charging it, let's say from the wall, and you're also using it, it kind of deducts that from it, and it just says this is the total output. So I think it's doing more of a pass-through and then just, you know, charging what's left over, whereas this one charges the battery and then pulls from the battery when you're charging and using it at the same time. I don't know that for sure. But the way that it reads out, this one seems like it does pass through, or it handles pass through charging and power usage a little bit better than the Jackery. I cannot confirm that, but just based off what I've seen and how it acts, that's what it seems like. And let's talk about that charger. Again, the whole off-putting thing, you get something like this and you feel like it's just not as, you know, engineered or flashy or as nice. I mean, this is the charger they give you. This is just a straight up box. Like this looks like a charger somebody could build if they went to a Radio Shack and bought parts and built their own charger. I mean, that's not necessarily bad. It's just, it's not as, you know, defined as some of the other chargers that I have. I mean, it literally uses a standard plug that you use for computers. It's just a standard outlet plug thing. I don't even know what they're called, but. And when I got this, I could not get it to charge with this device. So that was like my first sign. I was like, oh man, this thing doesn't even charge, doesn't even work. You know, obviously it's cheap. Like, I was in the wrong mentality to start this review. But after some troubleshooting, I found out that the cable, which I've never had this happen before, the cable that came with the charging unit was bad. Believe it or not, it was the freaking cable. I got 1,000 of these probably floating around. So I tried a new cable as a last ditch effort to start charging, and it fired up perfectly and everything's worked fine since. So if you do end up getting this and you can't get it to charge from the wall, you might need a new cable. I think that was just a one-off thing, but there you go. And last but not least, let's talk about the little fanny pack-ish style stuff that they give you worth of accessories to allow you to make full use of your battery. Here's the cable that they sent me. Again, this is the one that did not work. I marked it with tape. I still kept it because I'm actually kind of curious how the heck this failed. I don't know if I'll ever actually get into it and figure out why, but I don't really think it matters. Again, these things are a dime a dozen. So it does come with a car charger. So if you're on the go, you want to charge this from your vehicle, plug it into your outlet, plug this into the battery, you can charge. Obviously, it's not going to charge nearly as fast as how it would charge from the wall because you're limited to 12 volts. And then you have this. This is basically a DC converter. This is going to go to the output over here on the front, and it's going to give you all kinds of DC out options, which I really like how they lay this out. I mean, you can plug in just regular car ports, cigarette lighter stuff if you want to, but then you can also plug in more generic AC. They got both female and male DC outlet stuff here, so that's kind of nice. Then you have your solar hookups. For the life of me, I cannot remember what these are called, but they're standard to hook up to solar panels. I know my solar panels have them. I actually had to use converters on my solar panels to hook up to the Jackery because the Jackery has their own little special things. So these are standard. This goes right into the charging port, and there you go. You can hook up your solar panels just like that. It also comes with a user instructional manual and some other stuff that's just packing things. And then you have some covers, which I don't have displayed here, but all literally they do is just cover this up. So like if you're transporting, you're doing something, you can screw those on and you can keep those ports clean just in case you're taking it camping and it might get wet or muddy or something like that. All of this comes in a nice little carry pouch pack thingy that you can take with you on the go. That way you always have the accessories you need. So guys, if you are interested in some sort of a battery backup, multi-use, you can use it for 3D printers, you can use it for CPAPs, you can use it for camping to keep your beer fridge cool if you want to. This, for $200 to $250 less money than the Jackery Explorer 1000, is a better bang for your buck. I have tried to get this thing to trip. I've tripped it many times, pulling more power than it should be able to pull. It always bounces back, it always charges back, and it technically puts out more sustained power than the Jackery Explorer 1000 at a discount of $200 to $250. As it sits right now, this is my go-to. This is my backup. This is my go-to. It's actually better It puts out more power, it handles more, and it charges faster. It's just everything about this makes this Jackery Explorer 1000 look kind of bad. So guys, as always, if you want to check this out, there will be links in the description down below. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and have yourself a good day.